Hello， 大家好，我是立恩。今天这一集我忐忑又忐忑，因为我可以说是华人圈少数在 YouTube 上专门谈 Covid 世纪大阴谋的频道主了。也发现，在做这类影片确实流量会比较偏低。那我一直在犹豫，我该不该谈疫苗这个部分？为什么？因为如果今天只是谈病毒，大家可能还可以接受说这是一个人为的病，可是如果涉及到要谈疫苗的施打，也是真正主要的人为阴谋的话呢，我怕很多已经施打过疫苗的朋友呢，心里会感受一些惴惴不安的情绪。那我自己在第一步的时候，我也做过分享，就是我自己是施打过1剂的人，那时候是为了不要让孩子施打，所以我们自己父母宁可施打，好降低感染他们的几率。那有的观众朋友呢，可能也许施打过2剂或是3剂好的新冠疫苗。那不论如何，我还是希望秉持着一个基督徒的爱心跟大家说，希望大家今天在看这部片的时候，心里不要恐惧，因为我们的生命气息都是掌握在上帝的手中，相信上帝对我们的人生有美好的安排。所以无论我们之前因为政府宣传的关系打了多少疫苗都没有关系，好吗？但是这部影片我不得不做，是因为我希望让各位知道美国参议院的听证会最新的真相，就是有2位医师出面证实，新冠疫苗本身对人体有极大的危害，而且疫苗本身在疫情期间所带来的一个死亡人数是远高过感染到 Covid 的。讲到这个疫苗的阴谋呢，我们就要先从 Bill Gates 自己在 TED 的演说会上是如何说溜嘴开始说起。 Let's go。
Now, the exact amount of how you map from a certain increase of CO2 to what temperature will be and where the positive feedbacks are, there's some uncertainty there, but not very much. And there's certainly uncertainty about how bad those effects will be, but they will be extremely bad. I asked the top scientists on this several times, do we really have to get down to near zero? Can't we just, cut it in half or a quarter? And the answer is that until we get near to zero, the temperature will continue to rise. And so that's a big challenge. It's very different than saying, we're a 12-foot high truck trying to get under a 10-foot bridge and we can just sort of squeeze under. This is something that has to get to zero. Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
这是2010年 Bill Gates 呢在 TED 上面演讲，主要的题目是针对他认为未来人类要面临到的最大的危机就是全球气候变迁，或者说全球暖化。当众人都听得十分陶醉之境，觉得演讲的内容非常的言之有物。后来的人呢，再重新把他这个演讲拿出来一看发现说这个全球碳排放量的计算方式呢，第一个 population 也就是人口嘛，那你们提到了说，如果我们借助着新的疫苗以及医疗的技术，不是应该可以增加人口的寿命，进而增加人口的数量吗？结果不是Bill Gates 居然是说可以预期减少10到15% 的人口。
Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
哇，后来很多人就把这一段影片拿出来确认再确认。那我自己也看完了整场的TED演讲，因为第一时间的时候，我其实是以为 Bill Gates 可能是一个口误，可是后面他的演讲又再次提到了，就是要减少人口的方法呢，是可以通过医疗以及新疫苗的，我就不禁毛骨悚然，搞半天。怎么在你比尔盖茨的眼中，原来疫苗是一个可以减少人口的方式呢？也因为这样子呢，大家就会发现为什么后来Bill Gates 就在新冠疫情爆发的3个月前呢，在纽约市展开大规模的 Event 2021对流行病毒爆发的这个模拟演习了。
Tell me why, baby, why?
在2025年5月21号的美国参议院的听证会上，主要讨论 Covid-19 疫苗的潜在风险，特别是与心肌炎相关的问题。一开始先请的是心脏病学家彼得麦卡洛博士呢，他过去在 Covid-19 疫苗的安全问题上就已经发表过非常多的研究跟评论了。我们来看看他是怎么提到所谓 Covid-19 的疫苗呢，全部都已经直接证实会跟心肌炎，特别是心血管系统的严重影响。我们一起来听。
Now, the topic today is myocarditis or heart damage from the COVID-19 vaccines. I'm a cardiologist. I know the topic well. I've examined thousands of patients with this problem. Thousands. Before the pandemic, I had 2 patients ever with this problem. There's 1,065 papers in the peer-reviewed literature on COVID vaccine myocarditis. So let me summarize them for you. The first one that came on my radar screen that was alarming came from Washington University in St. Louis, August 18th of 2021. The first author is Verma and colleagues. New England Journal of Medicine. 42-year-old man comes into Washington University Hospital with vaccine myocarditis. The infection is ruled out. It's the vaccine. He's in the hospital. This is one of our best hospitals in the United States. He dies 3 days after taking Moderna. They can't save him in the hospital.
Say, Dr. McCullough, move the microphone just a little bit away from you.
Then one was reported from Korea by Choi and colleagues. This is now a younger man. Just a few days after Pfizer, he comes in the hospital. He dies within 8 hours of being in the hospital. I can tell you, I'm a cardiologist. That doesn't even happen with heart attacks. He dies within 8 hours. I examined all of the slides and the images that the Koreans had showed us. It looked like somebody took a blowtorch to that heart. It was so completely fried with inflammation. His heart was destroyed. These cases, which were widely known at the time, should have gotten everyone's attention. Everyone should have been laser focused on this. We should never have someone die after taking a vaccine that's directly caused to the vaccine. Then Gill and colleagues, Connecticut, published in Archives of Pathology, 2 boys, aged 16 and 17, who die a few days after taking Pfizer. These are teenagers. They're found dead at home by their parents. They're absolutely horrified. They request an autopsy. They call in University of Michigan and University of Minnesota to look over what are they finding at autopsy. Conclusion, it's Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine myocarditis, unequivocal. These are autopsy-confirmed cases. So for all the mothers in the room, how would they feel if they found their children dead after taking a COVID-19 vaccine? This is in the peer-reviewed literature. This is not misinformation. Everyone should be paying attention to this. This is not conjecture. This is in the peer-reviewed literature. So we started to ask ourselves, what is going on? Turns out that Pfizer and Moderna and Janssen are the genetic code for the spike protein. The spike protein is the damaging part of the virus. The spike protein is loaded into the body and it causes tremendous damage in some. Acute myocarditis appears to have some genetic predilection, and all of the vials of the vaccine are not the same. But I can tell you, I'm concerned that until the vaccines are stopped, there will be cases of acute myocarditis. And to finish, we've had 216 vaccine deaths this year alone. So if the vaccine campaign continues, we have to look at what are we getting out of it now, 4.5 years of the campaign, and how many more people will die. 80% of Americans took a vaccine. 20% didn't. 20% did not take a vaccine. The vaccine was never safe enough for me to take. Messenger RNA, devised by Pfizer and Moderna, has been chemically modified to be unassailable to enzymes in the body to be broken down. The messenger RNA is found in the human heart of people who die after the vaccine. It's found in the brain. The spike protein is found everywhere in the body. 3 studies now show the spike protein is circulating in the blood for 6 to 9 months after people take the shot. This part of the virus, the lethal part of the virus in the vaccinated, it's circulating in the blood. And then they take a booster, they get more circulating in the blood. It is a killer protein. It cannot be safe. It was not safe by design. Safety trumps efficacy. We cannot tolerate false drug claims. And we saw a poster behind Senator Blumenthal making a false drug claim that vaccines saved millions of lives, specifically the COVID vaccine. Well, let's take a look at that. When someone signs consent for a vaccine, Senator Blumenthal, does the consent form say it's going to save their lives? Of course it doesn't. It's not on the FAQ. There's never been a prospective, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial ever showing that COVID-19 vaccines reduce mortality or hospitalization. There's not even a valid non-randomized study.
简单做一个整理哈，第一个就是说，疫苗接种后的心肌炎的病例是远高过于过去的正常范围，就推翻了很多当初想要粉饰的这种所谓疫苗会引起心肌炎是非常罕见这样的一个说法。那第二就是说疫苗它对血管系统的影响，他就特别提到说，因为这个疫苗其实是施打了新冠病毒上面的这个 S1 的这个刺突蛋白，那这个刺突蛋白呢会导致刚讲的除了心肌炎呢，还有血管的炎症，影响了心脏的功能。也就是说，以疫苗的长期影响来看，会导致长期的健康问题。在听证会上呢，医生乔登·沃恩 （Jordan Warren） 呢，他就详细解释了 spike protein 这个疫苗上的刺突蛋白的影响，而且指出美国可能有1000万到1500万的人都受到了长新冠 （low COVID） 或疫苗伤害的影响。
I have treated approximately 4,000 patients suffering from long COVID and vaccine injury, or both. Many were young and previously healthy. For those with vaccine injury, trust in public institutions has been shattered. Many were coerced under the August 2021 federal mandates, despite legitimate hesitations due to prior infection or personal health risks. They knew their body better than the agencies. Now disabled, they are dismissed or ignored by the systems that mandated their compliance. The myocarditis signal was also a big thing. This spring of 2021, a clear safety signal emerged. Myocarditis in young males linked to mRNA vaccines. The Department of Defense confirmed cases of rare heart inflammation, and peer-reviewed studies later detected circulating spike protein in post-vaccine myocarditis cases. Autopsy findings have confirmed fatal vaccine-induced myocarditis. Yet federal authorities accelerated licensing and mandates, sidelining concerns. The CDC's hesitation to issue a health alert on myocarditis, and the FDA's former CBER director promoting vaccines on social media crossed a line from oversight to advocacy. This was not regulation, it was endorsement. Informed consent is the foundation of a patient-physician relationship. Absent the regulators providing that information, that relationship is irreparably harmed, and the practice of medicine will continue to suffer. And what I came away with was understanding that the spike protein, the S1 subunit specifically, is not a benign protein. It triggers inflammation, it disrupts endothelial barriers, it induces fibrin resistant to breakdown, and it promotes a lot of amyloid aggregates, which is what I research. These effects impair oxygen delivery, damage blood vessels, contribute to clotting pathologies that manifest with a lot of the symptoms that we're seeing in the long COVID and vaccine injured, which to this day is a huge amount of people. We're talking upwards of 10 to 15 million people in America that are being affected by the consequences of COVID in the long form or vaccine injury. And the typical symptoms are things like heart racing, brain fog, shortness of breath, and post-exertional malaise. In my clinic, I actually use immunofluorescent microscopy to be able to actually see what's going on in the blood and look for these amyloid aggregates. Some as young as teenagers that are unable to stand. Others are previously active adults suffering small strokes without typical identifiable causes. These are not abstract theories. They are the lived realities of my patients in Alabama and beyond. The mRNA injection, heralded as a solution, introduced a novel mechanism, lipid nanoparticles delivering modified mRNA that instructs the cells to produce a stabilized spike protein. Unlike traditional vaccines, this approach resulted in uncontrolled production of the spike protein for an unknown duration and distributes it widely across organs, including the heart, brain, and vasculature, and ovaries and testes. The actual EMA, their assessment of Comirnaty, which is Pfizer's vaccine, noted biodistribution beyond the injection site, contradicting claims that the vaccine stays in the arm. And a recent groundbreaking study using single-cell precision nanocarrier identification revealed LNP accumulation in the heart tissue of mice with adverse proteomic changes in immune and vascular proteins, raising concerns about the cardiac complications that dovetail with what we were seeing when we were looking at the COVID-19 vaccine myocarditis.
好，那我们之前影片也有介绍过什么是长新冠 （Long COVID） 哈，它指的就是说你感染的 COVID-19 呢，尽管你已经好转，甚至可以说病毒都已经清除了呢，但是你却仍然持续数周啊，或是数个月之久的后遗症。那这种后遗症就是患者哈，他仍然会一直出现各种慢性的症状。可怕的就是说，我们之前的影片也有提到，很多的临床医师发现，施打过疫苗的患者呢，比未施打疫苗感染的患者，他的 Long COVID 长新冠这样子的后遗症呢，反而表现的比例要更多。好，就是有非常高度的后遗症现象，反而出现在是打过疫苗的人。我们这影片只有讲到说有发现这个情况，可是原因是为什么？其实现在就很清楚，因为疫苗里的这个刺突蛋白，它会一直在你的血液里循环嘛，而且甚至还会产生新的刺突蛋白。那这样子的话，会变成你感染的更久的这种所谓 COVID 病毒的情况了嘛？好 ，OK， 那我现在要带大家来看呢，在这听证会上，另外一个非常具有参考价值的医师，也就是詹姆斯·索普，他是一名妇产科医生，他就长期关注在 COVID-19 疫苗对孕妇和生殖健康的影响。我们来听听看，他是怎么描述这个刺突蛋白 spike protein 呢，对于胎儿发育以及对于怀孕妇女呢带来严重的后果。
My patients, I focus on the most vulnerable patients, pregnant women and preborn. It is difficult to conceive of a more egregious breach of medical ethics by the government-controlled medical industrial complex than the promotion of COVID-19 vaccines to pregnant women, thereby, through transplacental transfer, effectively vaccinating their unborn and newborn children. This campaign was not accidental. It was calculated. Pregnant women were targeted deliberately for two reasons. First, women are the primary decision makers of healthcare across the human lifespan, a known marketing principle. Number two, pregnant women are the most vulnerable patients. If they could be convinced that the vaccine was safe and effective, it would imply that it was safe and effective for everyone. From the outset of the pandemic, this vaccine campaign was never grounded in biological science, but rather in behavioral science, specifically the manipulation of public perception through influence, fear, and persuasion. The federal government outsourced much of this psychological operations to NGOs which disseminated emotionally charged and misleading messaging. These entities falsely assured pregnant women that the vaccines were proven safe and essential for maternal and fetal newborn health, despite the fact that early evidence indicated quite the opposite. Pregnancy itself was protective against COVID-19 maternal mortality. Dr. Jay Winston, an initiative director at Harvard School of Public Health, described the government's vaccine marketing approach in a 2020 CBS News interview. He explained that the strategy was to, quote, go for the low-hanging fruit, those easiest to pick and harvest, end quote. And the fruit, in quotes, tragically, were pregnant women. Only this deception was institutionalized in the now infamous Shimabukuro study published on April 21st, 2021 in the digital version of the New England Journal of Medicine. 21 authors claim the miscarriage rate was 12.6%, but the raw data revealed an 82% miscarriage rate in women vaccinated during the first trimester. This figure mirrors the effects of chemical abortion drugs such as RU-486. Also, in the same journal edition, on the same day, an op-ed appeared by CDC Director Rochelle Walensky and journal editor-in-chief Eric Rubin. These publications were riddled with conflicts of interest and deliberate misrepresentations intended to coerce pregnant women into taking vaccines. Subsequent studies have also claimed that COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective during pregnancy and have been rebuked by respected researchers. These publications are fundamentally compromised by serious conflicts of interest, ranging from biased funding sources and institutional mandates, and even threats to their medical licenses and board certifications. Between 2020 and 2022, pharmaceutical companies paid $1.06 billion to reviewers at leading medical journals, the New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, Lancet, and BMJ, thus corrupting the peer review process. At least 6 existing studies, 3 from CDC, FDA, and 2 from Pfizer, revealed major breaches in safety signals for COVID-19 vaccines and pregnancy. These findings were ignored. Conversely, countless independent researchers with no conflicts of interest published findings that contradicted the false narratives and the pharmaceutical industry narratives, only to be rewarded by persecution, censorship, and threats to their medical licenses and board certifications. This is not hypothetical. It happened to me. On February 8, 2025, our team of researchers published a peer-reviewed study in Science, Public Health Policy, and the Law. We identified 37 adverse pregnancy outcomes significantly associated with COVID-19 vaccine, including miscarriage, stillbirth, birth defects, cervical insufficiency, premature rupture of membranes, preterm birth, and death of the newborn. Lin and colleagues in a major journal publication documented that the COVID-19 vaccine traverses the placenta, enters the fetal blood, and bioactively produces spike protein in the placenta and the lining of the uterus. Recently, animal studies revealed the mRNA COVID vaccine causes the destruction of 60% of the ovarian reserve in rats. This catastrophic public health failure was financed with taxpayer dollars and channeled through federal agencies to medical gatekeepers such as the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, ACOG, the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, ABOG, and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, SMFM. These organizations have abandoned their ethics and responsibilities to physicians and patients and must be held accountable. I urge the government to immediately halt all funding to these entities and to end every promotional campaign that coerces or recommends experimental mRNA therapies to pregnant women. This must stop now. Thank you.
好，我相信很多观众朋友看到这边呢，可能还是有的人觉得很狐疑，说，那难道 COVID-19 疫情它会慢慢的降下来，以至于好像现在又没有这个 COVID-19 的危机了？难道这不应该归功于全世界各国普遍施打疫苗之后带来的情况吗？关于这个部分呢，我们来听听看一开始的心脏病学家麦卡洛博士他是怎么说的吧。
Thankfully, COVID mortality went down for 3 reasons. Because we all got the infection, vaccinated and unvaccinated, so we developed population natural immunity. We developed early treatment. Credit to Operation Warp Speed. We used all the Operation Warp Speed tools, additional drugs. We treated patients with multi-drug protocols at home so they don't go to the ER. So Governor Green never saw the patients we treated because they were successfully treated at home. And the third reason is that the virus mutated to a much milder form. Those things happen concurrently with rollout of the vaccine. The vaccine cannot be falsely credited with saving millions of lives. We can't allow false drug advertising to be put up on a poster behind one of our public servants. We cannot accept that.
在我之前做的4部系列的时候，都已经充分证明了一件事情，那就是新冠病毒 SARS-2 呢，过去美国国防部连同福奇医师所做的研究主要是在增强感染率，透过furin protein， 也就是 furin 蛋白酶呢，它可以对 SARS-2 这个病毒呢表面的视图蛋白在 S1 跟 S2 的地方呢，可以产生切割。那这个切割，如果有学过免疫蛋白学的人就知道，当你的这一个蛋白质因为其他的酵素切割而造成的形状改变的时候呢，其实在功能上来讲，就可能引起很大的变化。那事实上呢 furin 蛋白酶对于 S1 跟 S2 的切割呢，就是要增强10000倍的感染力。但是我们过去的影片一直在强调的只有增强感染力，并没有会增强致死率，对吧？那为什么会这样呢？其实大家不妨动脑想一想，如果要达到阴谋论所说的人类人口的清除计划，那你想如果是增加了10000倍的感染率，又同时增加了致死率的话，那会有多可怕？可以说整个世界的经济都要崩溃，人类文明某种程度上都可能要灭亡。所以背后的有心人士的做法并不是这样的，有心人士的做法是我们增加了感染率呢，然后借由全球大范围的施打疫苗，这个其实反而是一个最不容易引起全球恐慌的一种慢性的人口减少计划。大家这样了解我意思吗？因为人口的减少是已经被安排在未来的寿命的减短，这个可能性，如果今天你看完，你就会发现确实是高的。那么我今天还是要非常语重心长的跟大家说，我今天做这一集的目的，只是希望还给大家更多知的权利，但是我也希望大家不要心里有恐惧。每一个人，其实我们活着的生命价值不在于长短，而是在于我们如何能够精彩的活着。希望给今天看完这部影片的你呢，能够用一个正面的心态。我觉得美国在川普总统上任之后呢，已经一一的在很短时间之内就浮上台面，这种资讯其实对大众来说是非常非常重要的。那当然最后我们影片一开始所提到的 Bill Gates 到底有没有真实的责任呢？我想我也不多说，片尾就放一段影片给大家做自由心证的判断。但更重要的就是我们每一个人都能够珍惜我们自己有的生命，以及珍惜我们身边的家人。我们这边是超级神队友，我们就下部影片再见，拜拜。
The COVID-19 pandemic wasn't just a public health crisis, it was a global power play, decades in the making. And now, Russian military intelligence has uncovered shocking evidence that confirms what many have suspected all along. This was never about public safety, it was about control. According to their investigation, the pandemic was orchestrated by powerful elites, with Bill Gates and Dr. Anthony Fauci at the center of it all. And here's where it gets even more explosive. Vladimir Putin is reportedly pushing for their extradition to Russia to stand trial for crimes against humanity. Even more shocking, this is shaping up to be part of a secret deal to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. Gates knows he's staring down the most serious legal consequences. Consequences so dire they could mean multiple life sentences or even the death penalty. In response, he's orchestrated a public campaign to manipulate the masses. People who've been brainwashed by years of propaganda from the mainstream outlets he funds, to rally to his side and defend him against charges of genocide. When questioned about RFK Jr.'s accusations, Gates told the Wall Street Journal that he's prepared to let the public decide his fate. An astonishing response from a man at the center of such grave claims, who is facing trial in the Netherlands for misleading the public about the COVID mRNA vaccines.
The position he's been given in this incoming administration.
Well, he wrote a book saying that Tony Fauci and I kill millions of children and make billions of dollars with vaccines. And, people can judge for themselves whether that's correct or not.
Gates is in full panic mode, pulling out all the stops to sway public opinion. Just this past week, he financed a fake grassroots doctors campaign to turn the public against RFK's confirmation as health secretary. Then he was exposed for funding legacy media journalists to run pre-written negative headlines about RFK before the hearing took place. If you think you know the full story, think again. We're about to expose the truth the mainstream media refuses to touch. 95% of the world isn't ready for this level of truth. But that doesn't matter. We're here because the truth does matter. This story is so explosive, even free speech platforms like X and Rumble might try to bury it. Most reporters wouldn't dare to touch it, but we will. We're putting everything on the line to bring you this deep dive investigation.
Yes, we know the cornerstone is Christ alone.